My name is Sylvia Litana Robertson, and I'll be your MC for the day. And I see that everybody here is here on time except myself. And of course, I just wanted to reiterate a little bit for those of you who are just joining us today as to why we're here and what we're doing. This actually is a forum where we are trying to figure out how we can do the collaboration and partnering among research and educational institutions of higher learning in Africa and the diaspora to advance quality of education for all persons of African descent. Yesterday, there was a very elaborate, what I'm going to call a dissertation, where the experts of education actually were online to give us some of their views and some of their concepts of what we think we should be doing or in which direction we are going to be going. So with that said, being said and done, I'm not going to take up too much time because, of course, I came in late. I will let our illustrious Dr. Osei Darkwa, our moderator, take over by doing what he does best. You did a fantastic job yesterday, by the way, Doctor. Thank you. Thank you all for coming on with all protocols observed.
Well, thanks a lot, Sylvia. And again, let me welcome you to this session.
Thank you.
Today, we are going to begin with one presentation from a representative from the African Development Bank in the person of Ms. Hendrina, Doroba. Let me give a very brief background before I invite her to speak. And then after, I'll hand over to Sylvia so that we continue the moderation. Ms. Hendrina is a dynamic and resource-oriented leader. She possesses excellent interpersonal communication and negotiation skills, the ability to influence decisions, and to develop positive relationships internally and externally. Her internal and national exposure has given her an opportunity to deepen her understanding of the political, economic, social, and cultural environment in which the social sector reform process operates at various levels globally. She enjoys being part of, as well as managing, motivating, training, and developing a successful and productive team. She thrives in highly pressurized and challenging working environment. So this is a brief profile of Ms. Hendrina Doroba. On this note, let me take this opportunity to invite Ms. Doroba to deliver her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Osei, and thank you for the introduction. I really appreciate, and I want to apologize that my director was not able to join, and so I'm standing in on behalf of my director. So please allow me just to read. It's actually a statement, not a presentation as such, but just to articulate the kind of support that the Africa Development Bank envisioned and the level of collaboration that we envision with the African academic diaspora. So on behalf of the Director, Human Capital, Youth and Skills Development at the Africa Development Bank, Dr. Martha Piri, and indeed on my own behalf, first of all, I want to congratulate the Association of the African University and its partners for successfully organizing this 2020 Africa Academic Virtual welcoming event. We also know that this is something that could have not been possible 2 years ago, if not 1 year ago, so job well done. Just to say a little bit about higher education in Africa and from where we see it as an African Development Bank, we note that over the last 2 decades, the Africa higher education has grown to high levels. We've seen an increase in the number and diversity of higher institutions of learning. We've seen an increase in the academic programs and indeed in students' enrollment. These expansions could be as a result of the increment at lower levels of education, mostly at primary and secondary level. And this could have been partly due to the free education as well as the subsidized secondary education system in a number of African countries. We've also seen other initiatives that have actually contributed to improving access. And we are talking of the low interest student loans that have been afforded to people from poor socioeconomic background. We've also seen a number of affirmative actions that have also been implemented in favor of girls. And so seeing more girls actually accessing higher education. However, despite the growth, we've also seen that higher learning education in Africa has a number of opportunities, or could we call them challenges. We've also seen that a number of children are failing to continue. Most of them are dropping out before they even actually get into higher institutions of learning. We also note that the gross enrollment rate, especially at post-secondary level, is the lowest in Africa. We are seeing it at 9%, whilst countries like, or continents like Europe and Asia are at about 70%, and Latin America at about 51%. So despite the several initiatives to get more girls in school, the education system, and just to make sure that they get in, we've seen that students enrollment, especially in STEM-related subjects, in the teaching faculty positions, as well as university leaderships, we still have an issue in as far as women representation is concerned. So mostly they are lagging behind in that area. In addition, we've also seen that higher education in Africa is also characterized by quality, efficiency, and governance opportunities. And when we talk about that, we are looking at the limited number of research outputs. For instance, we see that we are only as a continent contributing 2% of the global knowledge, which I believe is the lowest among the list. We've also seen that there's quite a lot of competition, and competition is good, but sometimes we tend to spread our resources thinly. We've seen situations where academic programs are characterized by multiplication in a way that each university want to do more or less the same program instead of maybe specializing in specific programs and developing their niche. Of course, there are issues of shortage of well-trained academic staffs. Some of it is due to the brain drain. We've also seen that the tertiary level education, for instance, we have quite a number of, and with due respect, aging population of professors and trainers, and a sizable number of them who are well-trained are actually on retirement. We don't seem to see a plan B on how we are going to make sure that that gap is filled. So that should be a concern to all of us. Of course, there are issues around inadequate financing, especially in public universities because of their dependency on government financing and so on. We've seen crowded lecture rooms due to limited space, due to infrastructure, lack of or weak linkage with industry, and many others. I believe I'm speaking to the convented. But these are issues that we are dealing with at the continent, and I think it's important time and again to remind ourselves on the current situation and to see how best we could work together. As a result of what has been highlighted, can you hear me?
Can you all please mute yourselves? If except the speaker that's speaking, can you please all mute yourselves? If you don't mute yourselves, I will mute you and you will not be able to come back on when you want to speak. Thank you. Please go ahead, Mr. Roba. My apologies for that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So as a result, Africa postgraduate education remains grossly underdeveloped. There's need for targeted support from different stakeholders, including the private sector, and the topic at hand now, the diaspora, in particular the Africans in the diaspora. And there are a number of areas where we see reforms and engagement of the diaspora would be critical. I'll just highlight a couple of them. One of which is looking at how do we work together to address the quality and relevance of academic and research programs. We do note that there's need for us to work together and consolidate and just make sure that we strengthen both internal and external quality assurances within our institutions across the continent. The issue of gender equity in higher institution of learning is also critical. I think this is an area that we could actually work together to make sure that we create a gender or gender-friendly environment for women, ensure that we enact affirmative actions or strategies that we ensure we have more women, not only in the STEM-related subjects, but also in areas of leadership. Because unless we have role models in these institutions, we will be leaving most of our children behind. We, however, take note that, over the years, the African diaspora has contributed greatly to the region's development. Of course, traditionally, much of the contribution has been focused on contribution through the remittance, as well as at household level, but also investment to some level to support education and skills development. But we believe we could do more. I think there are opportunities there for us to finance higher education, for us to look at knowledge generation, and so on and so forth. In terms of the what opportunities exist? I think from where we see it, that there are opportunities. First of all, we need to appreciate the fact that the demand for African academicians in the diaspora to work with African university is critical. And I think it's something that we need to look at and see how we can work together to make sure that this becomes a reality, because whether we like it or not, we, the Africans, are the ones who are expected to develop our own continent, and making sure that we have the right numbers of PhD orders, as well as a master's degree level as well, who then will get into PhD orders, are there in the continent. So we could work together on that aspect. Of course, we also recognize that there's a lot of capacity in the diaspora, and we could help in meeting this demand. And we are talking about 20,000 scholars who are currently engaged as professors, associate professors, or assistant professors in the US and Canada. And this is only for the two continents, but we also believe there are many more Africans out there who have the capacity and who could actually contribute to improving the quality of higher education in Africa. So the question would be then, what is the bank doing, and how can we work with the bank? First of all, I must say that as a bank, we do recognize the important role that the Africa in the diaspora can play, particularly in bridging the human capital on the continent. We know that there are several initiatives that have been there or established in the past, but we could do more, I believe, as partners. Over the years, and in view of the need for more selectivity, the bank has placed a lot of emphasis on post-secondary education. And as a bank, we are focusing more on technical vocational education and higher education research and development. And so we are looking and exploring possibilities or opportunities where we could actually work together to make that happen. Currently, this is being guided by our human capital strategy, which was just recently extended up to it was from 2014 up to 2021 February. So we are in the process of developing a new strategy. Just to say that as a bank, we are currently developing a skills for employability strategy. This is going to be a strategy for 2021 to 2025. And it will guide the bank on how we should invest, the kind of operation, the strategic engagement, and how we should work with other member countries to make sure that we contribute to skills development on the continent. Of course, the strategy is going to draw the lessons from the human capital strategy, which is currently on up to 2021, and whose focus has been on skills and technology in building competitive human capital base in Africa for inclusive and sustainable growth. And even in that current strategy, the role of the African diaspora in actualizing the strategy will be instrumental, not only to support higher education, but also to support TVET education. So for us as the bank, this meeting is strategic.
Thank you.
Thank you. My last point. So really, I want to say that we see this strategic development process as an opportunity, and we welcome the African academicians in the diaspora to engage with the bank, advise, and explore possibilities on how we could work together to foster skills transfer, mentorship, technical assistance, facilitate partnership and business linkages, and also invest it to boost the entrepreneurial activities in order to create jobs for the youth of Africa. So with that, I want to thank you all. I want to thank everyone, and just to say the bank is looking forward to partnering with the African Association of African University and the stakeholders, of course, the the academicians in the diaspora to work with us in championing the skills of human capital development in Africa. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Doroba. That information was very informative, and it's a very good feeling to see that the bank actually is now going to be working with the education system, hoping to foster our systems according to the way they're being put together. Without further ado, I believe I'm going to hand this back to our moderator, who is now going to lead the discussion. Yesterday, we were not able to get into a discussion because we ran into overtime, so to speak. So with the moderator's permission, I will let him guide this whole deliberation according to the way he sees it fit for now. So we fit in what we didn't finish yesterday, also continue with what we're supposed to be doing today. Dr. Darkwa, please.
All right, thanks a lot, Sylvia. Yesterday, especially for those who joined our session, there were 5 presentations.
Hello?
The first came from
Hello?
President
Hello?
Wilson from Morgan State University.
Yeah,
Okay. So what I was saying is that we heard from 5 presenters yesterday. President Wilson, Professor Yowale, Dr. Fontainberry, Professor Kumba, and Professor Jackson-Malete. They presented on various issues, but the key themes that I picked, leadership, collaboration, trust, readiness, building bridges, capacity building, human resource development, and funding. And this was one of the main themes that all the presenters addressed. We couldn't have time to discuss their presentation. So the purpose of today is for you, if you have any questions from any of the presentations yesterday, to ask your questions. I know there were a number of questions in the chat that we couldn't respond because of limited time. If you have comments, if you have contributions, this is the time. And I think we have about 40 minutes or so for this session.
Yes,
okay, so the floor is now open. You can send your comment in the chat, you can raise your hand, and then I think either Sylvia
Marceline. We have Marceline. Marceline
Okay.
has her hand up. Marceline, please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
Sure, thanks.
All right, before she answers, here's a question. I have one from Kisim Motondi, I'm sorry. For a number of years, I have been working with DFID and the CSC on the professional fellowship program. I have just secured 2 people for 2 fellows who will come over to the UK for 3 months from February 2021, COVID-19 permitting, to train these youngsters go back to the continent and replicate, replicate these skills. Isn't this kind of thing that the AAU and the African Development Bank could exercise for many youngsters across the continent? In other words, he's asking, we have Ms. Doroba online. Is this something that, what he just wrote right now, is this something that the bank is able to support to enable these students who are coming from the continent to the diaspora area to be able to enable them facilitate or do? Is Ms. Doroba still online?
Yes, yes, I'm online. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm trying to understand the question.
All right, he's saying, in other words, that this is Kasim. Can you just unmute yourself and do the question yourself, please? Kasim? Because it's sort of a statement, and then at the end, he just poses a short question. In other words, he's saying he has 2 students who are coming to the UK for 3 months from February 2021, COVID permitting, to train in data science technique at their lab in the United Kingdom. He doesn't say what the business is. Then he says, this idea to have these youngsters go back to the continent and replicate these skills, in other words, what they're learning from the UK when they go back home, is it something that, I think he's asking, how financially these kids or these people can be supported through, I think, the banking system or the system that we're putting together right now. I think that's my understanding.
UK, and they're coming back to Africa. What could the government, the bank do to facilitate, if I got it right? Two things. First of all, we need to identify where are these students coming from which countries. And secondly, usually the bank does support through the respective governments. And so the best way would be to engage with either the universities in those respective countries, or to engage directly with the respective governments and see how they could collaborate or facilitate the students when they get back. So that's one route. The other route is the bank itself has what they call the program for the youth. And so we create opportunities for youth to actually come and be as young professionals. It's quite a competitive process. And if they find them fit, they will then join the bank and work as professionals, and hopefully will be able to grow their idea, their professional skill. But moving forward, what we are looking at is more of a systemic kind of support to respective governments, so that we don't do one-off support, but we support governments to be able to accommodate students such as those that have gone to other countries to work, and to be able to come back and contribute to the economic transformation of the continent. I hope I've answered the question. Thank you. Yes. Yes, that is feasible, like from the way I've explained it, either through young professionals. They can get on the website. Every year we do call for young professionals, and individuals apply and they can get through that. But they can also reach me at h.doroba at afdb.org. I'm sure the organizers of the meeting can give the details to that, just to give more information on that. We are also working with the African Union to actually develop a fund, design a fund that will also support and help to facilitate respective governments to be able to support and engage youth such as the ones that have been highlighted in the question above.
Yes, hello everybody. I am Dr. MARCELIN DABO from Senegal. I am a part of the diaspora in France. So thank you for organizing this this meeting about African diaspora. How many times I have? 5 minutes? 2 minutes? How long?
2 minutes, sir.
2 minutes.
Question,
Okay,
yes, question, and we move on, because I'm sure there'll be other people now that the floor is open. Everybody will want to speak. So let's give everybody time. We only have how many more minutes? 30 minutes left. Go ahead, sir.
So I wanted to think, I agree with the collaboration, but I think that it is important to do it in every field, worldwide, in every field, to do collaboration in every field worldwide, because focusing only in America, Canada, and other countries, for me, it is poor to do it. And that is for the first point of the worldwide collaboration. And I think that even if we are scholars in university, etc., we would not forget our youth. The young people who are not in the universities also should be part. And if I am repeating other people, I'm sorry, because maybe I didn't hear everybody. So the other thing is that I think that our leaders and you know, the people who are around, I can say more than 50 years ago into 60. Sorry for my English, it is not very deep. Sorry for that, but I will try to explain things in that way. It is to say that we need to revise our protocols inside Africa and our titles that we give to people. When we are talking to ministers, we always say excellency. We want that proof of excellency of our ministers and our presidents according to our young people. Because every time when they come, they say that we have to do Afrocentric education. I am talking about the presidents of the University of Morgan states. It's true. But what do you think when you say Afrocentric and then you wear coats and other things that are not African? So we should start from there. And then we apply what we are saying. So relationship, the last point for me from Professor Kumba yesterday, I totally agree with Professor Kumba yesterday when he is saying that it is important for African people to give opportunity to the diaspora. Myself, I write to some Senegalese universities to be as partner with them. Nobody answer to my emails. Are they fear for their own diaspora to collaborate with them? Do they fear from that? What are the real programs? So I think the weak point of Africa in global, it is to do meetings and not actions. We are very powerful to do in meetings and protocols, but when actions come, everybody run away. So we should change this. We should change this. Thank you for your understanding.
Thank you very much, Marceline. Dr. Darkwa, I think I'll let you pick from your panel from yesterday who you feel suitable to answer that question, or maybe to make a comment on what Marceline has just shared with us.
Well, maybe Professor Kumba, since you mentioned his name. Prof, I know you are around, so if you'd like to come in to respond.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Oh, all right. Thank you for another good session this morning. So yes, the comment I made yesterday alluded to the dynamics of this engagement. So we're not dealing with Africa in isolation. As part of a more larger global community that is very competitive. The fight for talent globally is strong. Asia is rising as it is because they are fighting for global talent. The US is #1 because it attracts global talent. Europe is trying to follow up with it. They want global talent. And if Africa would use its own talent that is abroad, it also has to fight to have space for that talent. And part of that fight for that space is to make provision for the diaspora to actually come back and be part of the homeland academic community. The conversation about brain circulation or working remotely from a distance without actually accommodating space for diaspora academics to actually come back and be embedded in our university system, I think it's short-sighted. I mentioned the example of what the Chinese are doing. That by 2007, up to half of Chinese university presidents were from the diaspora. They went and brought them back to come and lead the universities, not to compete with those who were already on the ground, as it might seem, but to come and complement and provide the kind of manpower and brains that would upgrade operations, curricula, and practices on the ground. They have a program that they call 1,000 Chinese, 1,000 talents. Every year, they go abroad and bring 1,000 of their best academics. That's how they overhaul their whole society and industries and higher education. 1,000. In the last 10 years, they've recruited 8,500. It's online. That's how much 8,500 gone back to China from abroad that they go and bring back. Between 2008 and 2016, collectively, not only academia, but industry or generally, China has brought back to its country 60,000 of its diaspora. That's how China has become #1. When we talk about our own diaspora at an arm's length, in a remote way, where you sit in the US like me or somebody in France or somebody elsewhere, and we work remotely, that boot on the ground doesn't give us the kind of progress that some of us hope we can contribute in our lifetime. I mentioned the example that if our independence leaders, who in the 50s were the diaspora, the born diaspora, the Nkrumahs, the Nyereres, the Kaundas, if they didn't go back and put boots on the ground on the continent, I'm not sure how independence would have come without their active boots on the ground organizing. So when we do diaspora from a distance through e-platforms, I'm not sure how transformative it can be on our continent. So my suggestion was that our universities to whom we are speaking here, our vice chancellors who are on this platform, who might become ministers in their country or were previously ministers, who are part of the political leadership, let's have this conversation in a way that you actually accommodate space on your campuses for some of us to come and complement you on these human capital shortages, these faculty shortages. Be boots on the ground and lead research, not only from a distance. It's much more valuable. I'm not sure anything holds our universities here represented from hiring diasporas on their staff, your friends, your colleagues who are abroad, who come home every holidays. Every December they are there. They do conferences. The young man from Senegal mentioned, they actually come there and avail themselves. Is it the budgetary allocation? Is it policy? It becomes a kind of a round robin to want to engage diaspora, but keep them in the diaspora. So when you look at that model of circulation and compare it to what the Asians are doing and quote unquote leapfrogging, then it gives us a much longer distance. And if I may wrap up with responding to Dr. Doroba at the ADB, I have a concrete recommendation that we can work on very, very precisely. Our colleagues from Carnegie Foundation are here. They are the one that I know who have created a program and funded that provides diasporas to come to the continent and spend 4 weeks to 6 months. They have, and I think they've sent about 300 or so diasporas from the US side, North America, to Africa. Those are our colleagues who have come and spent time and made that contact. Can the African Development Bank put a counterparty fund that surpasses what the Carnegie is putting on the table? To say if Carnegie provides $10 million, the ADB provides 10 or 20, so that you have counterparty resources on both sides. Otherwise, it's too one-sided. And when the diaspora come here, they go back to their home country. Can there be a fund to say that if some of these diasporas who come through the Carnegie Foundation or similar projects to spend 6 months on the continent, they've seen boots on the ground, they've seen it, and they want to stay, you will provide them funding for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years to become faculty on those campuses. So that we have a certain kind of movement backwards. Micro projects, we're talking about a continent of 1.2 billion, in the generation 2.4 billion people on the youth board. So micro things here and there, I'm not sure how much progress that yields. So if the ADB can conceive of a counter fund that those who come from abroad and want to stay on the continent and teach in our universities and lead research projects, bring their resourcefulness, their contacts back home, you provide funding for them for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It doesn't have to be a lifetime fund. Then the kind of thing that our partners abroad are doing to send diaspora home, or we are doing individually, we can find support back home. Otherwise, everything is conversation and conversation, and there are no resources and platforms to make progress. So I would hope that out of this conversation, we establish concrete platforms for these activities and funding to enable the Africans who are abroad, be it the African born like myself or our long diaspora in African American. Somebody mentioned we are 20,000 of us in North America, Africa-born academics. There are 100,000 African American academics. Together, it's about 140, 150,000 people. And that's your diaspora. And we are sitting abroad, not coming home. So my main case is there have to be physical efforts at physical relocation so that we have boots on the ground. Otherwise, we cannot compete with Europe and China. They'll keep draining us away because they're actually paying us to come back to their country. And we are not doing a counterparty. China is paying enough for their people to come back, but we are not. So then how far do we go with that?
Thank you so very much, Doctor. Dr. Darkwa, can you please time keep me? I'm not paying attention to time because I'm paying attention to the questions.
Sure.
Leave me in when we have about 10 minutes left so I quickly wrap it up.
Okay, sure.
Some of these are too long for me to read, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the short ones that I can read, and then the long ones will let the people come in themselves and explain, because I believe the first one that we had directed to Ms. Doroba, the gentleman is saying, no, that's not what I meant, so I'll get back to you at a later time. Let me take some other questions. The next question is from Deng Daniel Ngor, NGOR. How will the AAU homecoming reach all young people in Africa? For example, in South Sudan, they much lack in education. How will you help such situation? Dr. Darkwa, please pick your victim.
On this one, I'll pick Joseph because he spent some time in Botswana.
Correct.
And yeah, so Prof.
Sorry. Hi, good morning and good afternoon. What can we repeat the question, please? I didn't think that one was going to be for me, but yes, please repeat the question.
All right, the question. All right, now pay attention. Pay attention now. All right, it says, how will the AAU Homecoming, in other words, this organization here that we're in right now, reach all young people in Africa? For example, in South Sudan, they lack much in education. How will you help such a situation where in other words, what they're asking is, how can we reach the people that do not have access to education and what we're doing right now?
Yes, it's a very difficult question, and you know what we could have been talking about too was the internet would have been one of the tools that we could use, but I'm sure that would be an issue for South Sudan as well. They're very much at a beginning stage with some, you know, with building up their universities after a lot of civil strife. So I think that, you know, working with universities, as I talked about yesterday, building these partnerships together with universities, getting into networks, into consortium, such as the AAU, could help with beginning to build that bridge to help young people in South Sudan to move forward. So we need to first of all identify what are some of the challenges that the universities might face there, and how do we engage the youth and other young people to be more to get more into education. I would stop there for now, Prof.
Thank you so very much.
Maybe Prof. Oyewale, because he's based in Nigeria, if he's online, maybe he could also complement Joseph's response.
No, things I'll probably be a bit detailed in this one. I have been working with the Department for International Development of the UK to support African young professionals who come over to the UK to work with us in different fields. So I'm a data scientist, and over the years I've been inviting 2 young professionals funded by DFID to come to the UK and stay here in our lab learning new skills, which we expect that when they go back to the continent, they can apply these skills, just a way of replicating them. Now, that is funded by DFID, and this is only for the Commonwealth countries, so not for the Francophone. So the African Association of Universities and the African Development Bank, and this was my suggestion to the speaker from the AFD, a similar scheme could be developed in collaboration with African universities. And these fellows do not necessarily have to train in Europe or in America. They can actually train in universities on the continent, but the human resources, the training can be arranged from all over the world, you know, among us diasporas. You know, we are living in new circumstances where, you know, it really doesn't matter much where we are, but we can provide this sort of coordinated training schemes from anywhere in the world. You know, that would be a way of upscaling such a scheme. I get 2 fellows in a year, which are fully funded by DFID. That is it. And tip of the iceberg for the potential on the continent. So to wrap up, I just want to go back to what Professor Nkumba has been talking about. I do not think myself that returning to the continent is a solution. It's probably not the most feasible solution, because most of the people who, you know, think of returning will be people in mature professionals, who some of those probably heading to retirement, but we want to focus on the youth, on the youngsters. We want to generate this new breed on the continent. most of those, if they come to Europe, they prefer to stay in Europe for the next 10, 20, 30 years. It's when they're in their 50s when they start thinking, oh, probably I should go back home. So we can actually organize these arrangements for these youngsters to be retained on the continent, to be trained through collaborative programs, whether they could go to America, South Africa, to Nigeria, to Egypt, and working with the people in the diaspora across the world. So that is my, thank you very much indeed.